Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Fair Income podcast. This week we had none other than Ustaz Abu Taymiyyah come back on the podcast. He was with us 2 years ago and he was back on the episode again today. We spoke about spiritual disease. We touched on lessons from Surah to Yusuf. We also spoke about a brother being a mirror to another brother. Wallah, you're going to enjoy this episode. Sit back, relax and enjoy.
Oh, this is just personal. That's why he's criticizing me. We should look at these criticism, and perhaps my opponent or the detractor, if you want to call him a hater, sometimes it comes off the tongue of a hater. But we should look at each one of these criticism that are put forward and see whether it has a point or not. Does that make sense?
100%.
And this is what I personally try to do as much as I can. Sometimes, you just really struggle to see through it. You really struggle to see through it. I'm trying my utmost best to see this brother's point. But as Ibn al-Qayyim, as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, or when others speak about others, right? I've seen it happen with a couple of popular brothers, and you can clearly see it's hasad, subhanallah. Habibi, the brother listens, go and advise. No, I don't want to advise, I'm going to put it online. Why do you need to put it online if the brother can maybe, right? If he is not maybe being receptive to the advice and is actually harming others, you may end up taking a different course of action.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Fair Income podcast. We have our brother from the UK, who's not really from the UK because Allahumma barik, he stays in Saudi Arabia a fair bit, mashallah. He's currently studying his masters in Riyadh. And the first one was so nice, we had to do it twice. Welcome, Sheikh. Ustadna Abu Taymiyyah.
Allah yahfadhak, jazakumullah khair.
Well, guys, you might have noticed there's a bit of a scenery change in this podcast. We have a nice little banner in the background there. Just a quick bit about the banner. So, Extending the Olive Branch is in collaboration with Olive Tree Events, who also have another initiative called Olive Travels, which I'll talk about in a second. Actually, you know what? Play the trailer right now, please.
Envision yourself praying in Masjid al-Aqsa, where our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ascended to the heavens, exploring the historical treasures of Jordan and Egypt, unveiling the cultural wonders of Bosnia and Turkey, walking through the streets of Casablanca and Cordoba, introducing olive tree retreats and tours, a transformative new venture designed to deepen your connection to the rich history of Islam, sowing seeds of goodness through meaningful tours and retreats. January 2025, join us for an unforgettable adventure through the heart of the Islamic Golden Age in Spain and Morocco, guided by an international guest scholar. This is more than a journey, it's a profound connection to our Islamic heritage, an opportunity to draw inspiration from our glorious past for a brighter future. Don't miss out on this experience of a lifetime. Register your interest now.
And we're back. So everyone's looking at me like, what's going on? I've been in the industry for a bit, you know what I mean? So the segment is called Extending the Olive Branch. Now, I was given the task of thinking about how can I make this something that translates to what Nadira wants to do on the podcast, but she can't because, it's not her podcast. So I said, you know what? Extending the olive branch to Sheikh Abu Taymiyyah, inshallah, just to explain some situations that have happened in the past. Some situations you guys might be familiar with.
Don't you normally extend the olive branch when something's gone wrong? In order to bring people closer, is that?
We'll find out if something went wrong.
Yeah.
So, I remember on your last trip to Australia, some brothers took you to fulfill what is a childhood dream of yours, to pet a furry little friend that, that might jump very high.
Yeah.
And just give us a quick explanation of what happened there.
In the kangaroo?
Uh-huh.
Do you want to see the footage first?
I think we'll have to cancel the whole podcast if you put that footage up. That was not meant to go out. It was just meant to be like a private visit to the kangaroo, right? It's been something that I was very excited about. If there was one thing I wanted to see, it was the kangaroo. You know, it's one of the wonders of Australia, isn't it?
There's more.
Everyone was telling me, my younger brothers and sisters, and they were like, make sure you take a picture with a kangaroo. So I wanted to do it for my family, right? So I was like, khalas, I'll pay a visit to the kangaroo and make it a dream for you guys. And they were over the moon by it, wallah. Especially my little sister, she loved it. Because we were looking at kangaroos before I left to Australia. Me and my little sister, Fatima. I have a teenage younger sister. We have a very good relationship. And me and her were looking at the kangaroo videos beforehand. Because I was in my mum's house spending the night with her before I came here. And we were talking about kangaroos. When she heard Australia, kangaroos was the whole discussion. So may Allah preserve them. So I just wanted to show them the pictures of a kangaroo.
Did you show them the flinch as well? Was that in the video? Or
Huh?
The flinch, you know?
When you took a
Well,
step back.
I can't remember what I done with the kangaroo.
I don't know where is inshallah. Khalas. Trauma is in the past. We'll leave it there. But there's also another bit of explaining to do for Android users. So we know that you say, may Allah guide them onto the right path every time you have the chance. Tell us a little bit about your beef with Android users.
I just think Apple is far better, far more proficient. Some may disagree, but we can agree to disagree. And I still make dua for you, that Allah one day guides you, to using the Apple phone. Has changed lives. Well, it's changed my life. And I'm specifically speaking about the notes. A lot of the lectures, a lot of the classes that I give, the reminders, it would be notes that has been documented in these, or in this iPhone, right, throughout the last maybe 10 years or so. So that's why I have a special relationship with it. And I know the Samsung users, they probably argue saying that we have a better, but no, it's not.
Have you always been an iPhone user, or?
Yeah, I've always been an iPhone user.
It's always on the right
Loyal.
path. Allahumma barik.
Honestly, it's helped me a lot in my da'wah. Like, you don't see me carrying around books when I travel. Everything's on the phone. All my PDFs, my books. I try to read as much as I can, whenever I can, to put down the notes. Even one of the brothers in South Africa was actually saying that was with us, Muhammad. He goes, I really envy, right, Abu Taymiyyah. I was like, why? Because he's always on his phone, right, and taking down these notes. I wish I could do that. Like, it's pretty simple, yani. Whenever you hear a benefit, or whenever you want to structure a type of lecture together, and you've got the notes where I've saved in different places, I'll just take it out and just add it on. It becomes a whole lecture. If I need to print it out, I can easily print it out.
May Allah guide the Google Pixel users as well.
I mean,
And you guys do it, like, honestly do it for attention. I believe that anyone who uses a Google Pixel.
no, wallahi, as a student of knowledge, this can help immensely. I'm really for being forward thinking, using modern day ideology, taking advantage of it. I think that's extremely important, especially for a student of knowledge. We can't keep on getting left behind, right? When you look at it, right, and you think back at some of the new inventions that came into place, right? Yani, men of religion were always the last to take advantage of it, and we would be left behind. So I think every time something comes out, like the AI, I really like the Sheikh called Sheikh Abdullah Swedi. Sheikh Abdullah Swedi, very forward thinking. He was actually given the opportunity to teach in the Haram, in the Prophet ﷺ's masjid, and he's a revert, white revert, and he's always trying to stay on top of modern day discoveries and what can we do to enhance our da'wah. So he was very big on the whole AI stuff, and when it came out, done quite a bit of research on it, conducted lectures on. And I think we as students of knowledge really have to do that. Otherwise, we will get left behind, and then next generation, right, we might not necessarily be able to keep up with them, right? And at the end of the day, when you think about it, your children are going to be from that next generation, right?
Yes.
Your grandchildren. You are a person who studied, you're learned. You spend all of this time to learn about your religion. If you don't know how to practically apply that in today's world, you're going to really be disconnected. You're not going to be able to fulfill your job accordingly. Your wadhifa, your role in society to give da'wah, right? To those around you.
Definitely.
وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, as Allah said, right? Warn and guide, your close relatives. وَهَكَذا.
Beautiful. And then the last question of extending the olive branch. How did you find that? We call it Acai in Australia, so we apologize for butchering the way you're supposed to say it. It's supposed to say Acai or something like that. You had a bit of a funny experience with it. Would you like to?
I think it's pretty overrated I don't know what all the hype's about. I don't know why people are kidnapping one another for Acai. Like, I've been hearing stories about people kidnapping others just for the sake of Acai. Like, I don't see what you guys see in it. It's a bit like al-Baik to me. You know, al-Baik is so overrated in Saudi Arabia. I don't know what people see in it, yani. I spent 6 years in Saudi Arabia, in Medina. Like, I don't think I've ever bought al-Baik with my own money. Unless I was compelled to do so, everybody was eating it and then didn't want to be the odd one out. I'd go have the al-Baik. Other than that, I don't think I spent a single riyal. I think the Acai is like the Australian version of it.
So you would say that the
Probably going to get berated for this, scolded online.
You're going to copy from
this.
the Saudis and the
And
Aussies.
Yeah.
Wallah, kudos to them, you know. Everyone has their own taste buds and people desire and like different things, but I think I'll stick to my meat, yani.
So you don't rate al-Baik at all?
I know people
Nothing
rate
special,
it.
yeah.
Nando, you're saying to me that I'm going to get scolded online. I have to be very careful with my
I'm
words.
joking.
I
I
probably
don't
will.
think anyone feels too strong about that. It's just a bougie KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like average chicken, yani. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to criticize or anything like that. I just think the hype is out of place, yani, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I tried to give it its haq. I tried it 3 times in Saudi.
Masha sunnah, 3 times.
Yeah. No, 100%. That was one.
They even say you haven't
And
been
even
to
Nando's, like, I'll look at Nando's the exact same way. I just think the price is extorted. It's basic chicken that you get. But it's a high quality, you know, quote in, quote out, franchise that everyone likes to go to because of the name that it has. I just think it's average chicken that you're paying more for.
You know what, but what did Khidr say to Musa? فارقني بيني وبينك.
قال هذا فراق.
I can't agree with you on the Nando, sorry.
Oh, you like Kangaroo? Huh?
It's probably one of the best.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
like-
So now I'm starting to think otherwise about, you know, aren't you an Arsenal supporter as well?
Well, I was, yeah. And we grew up near Arsenal. I lived right next to the stadium. And grew up seeing the Arsenal team,
So
youngsters.
your judgment's a bit flawed. No, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you, Sheikh. Wallahi. We're going to delve into the topics now, inshallah. So for everyone who needs to know about Olive Tree events and Olive Tree travels, my apologies, Olive Tree retreats and tours, there we go. They're going to have all the links below. We're going to also collaborate on all these posts, inshallah, so you'll be up to date with everything that they do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept efforts of Sister Nadira and her father Junaid, who have been extremely helpful, supportive.
So they've done a lot this trip. They really have. It's gone really, really well. Better than I expected. You know, mashallah, tabarakallah, may Allah Azza wa Jal aid and assist them in their endeavors.
Allahumma ameen. And that's extending the olive branch. Now, we spoke about this a little bit before.
And keep them sincere.
Allahumma ameen.
Doing the right things.
Allahumma ameen. Sorry, I ruined the dua.
With the right intentions.
Allahumma
I mean,
ameen. So, Sheikh, we're speaking about this a little bit before. I know you love to talk about Surah Yusuf. I just want to know why. If that's possible.
You know, Surah Yusuf, you know, people from different walks of life. Young, old, mother, father, daughter, son. Someone who's infatuated, struggling to overcome his passionate desires. Surah Yusuf. You've been forsaken. You've been abandoned. You feel like people are not giving you a due right. You've been oppressed. Patience, forbearance. SubhanAllah, you know, it's a jack of all trades, if you want to call it that, right? It has everything in it that you can think of, especially the issues that are affecting our youth and just people as a whole in today's society. That's why when I was asked to do a university tour, right? I'm talking about the secular universities in the UK. We did 27 universities in 2 months. I picked Surah Yusuf, right? Likewise, it has a tawheed, what one should start with when it comes to his da'wah. وهكذا يعني. It was like a theme that, you know, you can bring under it so many topics that people can relate to. That's why I picked it. If you're ever sad, you're looking for some sort of remedy to overcome your sadness, Surah Yusuf. Right? I can go on and on and on. And the lecture is online. It's called Surah Yusuf like no other. Out of all the 27, we picked one. Now we put it up. And it's there for people to benefit from, inshallah ta'ala. You can find it on my YouTube channel. Yeah, but honestly had a huge impact on my life. Really has.
Which lesson in particular that had a major...
So there's quite a few. One thing that always stands out for me is, I'll mention two, right? I'll mention two. They're from my favorite benefits of Surah Yusuf. The first one I've mentioned a couple of times already in the program. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, saved Egypt and its neighboring areas through the knowledge that he had. Which shows you that one person can save a whole nation. Right? They could have been struck with poverty for, centuries to come. Right? So the king saw a dream, and then subhanAllah, no one was able to give him that dream interpretation. So his new servant that was previously in prison at the time, or the servant that came back. So anyways, he was released and then continued his service for the king. Remembered that there was Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam who accompanied him in that prison cell that was able to interpret dreams. So that's knowledge that he had. And he was able to give him exactly what was going to happen in the first 7 years and then the 7 years after that and what would follow thereafter. A bit of knowledge. Saved Egypt, right, and the neighboring areas. This is why I always encourage brothers and sisters. At this moment in time, we are in need of knowledge more than anything else. Right? Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala would say, we are in need of knowledge more than we are in need of food and drink. Because food and drink, how many times a day do you need it? 3-4 times? But knowledge just about every moment of your life. How to enter into the bathroom, what to do, how to clean yourself. Like from the moment you wake up, as you leave the house, how to interact with the people. You need knowledge. Right? How to worship Allah, how to be conscious of Him, how to be fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's knowledge. And I would say that would be number one. Number two, Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, the father of Yusuf, went through a lot of hardships and difficulties. And I don't know how to put it into words, right? Because I've never lost a child. Right? Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam lost the most beloved child to him. That's Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And I wouldn't wish that for any parent. So we're being brought extreme circumstances that prophets went through. And when you go through a difficulty, you can take inspiration from all these prophets that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam would take inspiration from. Right? Allah would tell him, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about what Yaqub went through, what Musa went through, to give him inspiration, to give him that patience to continue. So he loses his son. The first time round he says, فَصَبْرٌ Jameel. وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. Beautiful patience. Because this is mentioned twice. He said it the first time and then the second time round as well, when he lost his second most beloved son, and that is Benjamin. And he said it again. But this time round, he said, فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ عَسَى اللَّهُ أَنْ يَأْتِيَنِي بِهِمْ جَمِيعًا. Perhaps now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring them all back to me. Hold on a second. You've gone through a calamity, and then that calamity now has multiplied. It's happened again. Most people, they would lose hope. Right? What do they call it? Deja vu or something along the lines of that they use in today's day and age. Of course, we don't believe in that kind of stuff. But continuing off from that point, he said beautiful patience again. And then subhanAllah, in what he uttered, there is so much hope. Now Allah is going to bring everyone back to me. Right? When the reality, no matter, most people think differently. So the scholars, they took from this that when you go through a calamity and then that calamity intensifies, it becomes so much more difficult to deal with, it is then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will relieve you of your difficulties. Right? Inna ma'al usri yusra. Right? After hardship comes ease, and this was mentioned twice. So the point is, if you're right in that difficult situation and you feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, hold in there. Right, hold tight. It's near, inshallah ta'ala. Right, and that's what we can take away from it. I think that's absolutely beautiful and amazing. Like just the Quran. Yesterday we did a lecture on modern day solutions from the Quran, right? And this is definitely one of them. A lot of people are depressed. Now Sheikh was telling us, Sheikh Bilal, a lot of people are in depression. A lot of people are sad. Right, they're going through hardships and difficulties. And perhaps you can say that this is the majority of, people today. You won't really know what people are going through until you converse. You open that discussion with them, right? You open dialogue. And that's when the reality starts coming out. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. He said it twice. First time he said فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. The aid of Allah is sought in that which you describe. He was really annoyed, upset at what they were saying. And the second time round, subhanAllah, there was so much hope in his speech. Yeah. That's when the relief of Allah Azza wa Jalla is close.
Just to touch on that topic, subhanAllah, there was a story of a woman who is here in Melbourne, whose son had a bit of difficulties. Like I think had some sort of a disability, subhanAllah, but she loved him dearly. And he passed away. Apparently, like there was something that happened at home, and no one was available to take care of him at the time. And then he died of basically, wouldn't say negligence, but we'd say like someone not being there to take care of him or be able to fend for him at the time. And then she actually passed away at his funeral from grief. Allah yarhamah, yeah? So it's like, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew. I can't really talk for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this, but the amount of pain that she was going through from losing her son, subhanAllah, had. But
and you look at the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He lost 6 out of his 7 children. This is in his lifetime. 6 out of 7 children. Sometimes people ask the question, why do I have to go through all of this? You're not better than the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose all of that for him, so that when you go through hardships and difficulties, look, the greatest man to ever walk on the face of this earth went through it. Makes it so much more easier for you to deal with.
100%.
Yeah.
There was you mentioned Sabrun Jameel. Now the topic of sabr is, I believe, pretty well thought out and really well articulated in the deen. For people who don't understand what sabr actually is, what Sabrun Jameel actually is, can you give us a bit of insight into that?
So one of the best definitions that I've personally come across is what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned. When he said, وَحَبْسُ اللِّسَانِ عَنِ الشَّكْوَى. Right? To hold back your tongue from complaining. Like, what do you do? What did Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam do? إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Right? He said, I complain my sorrow and my sadness to Allah Azza wa Jal. There's only so much that the creation can do for you. When you're constantly nagging at them and killing the mood, that's how they'll describe it. Whenever you turn up, you're always just complaining about your situation. They may be able to console you a couple of times, but eventually they say, this guy's always complaining, man, he's killing the mood. We want to have fun. Right? But Allah Azza wa Jal, go cry your out to Allah Azza wa Jal and see what He does for you. So حبس اللسان عن الشكوى وعدم التسخط عن المقدور, right? Not raging at the qadr of Allah, what Allah Azza wa Jal has decreed. Sometimes people say, Akhi, why me? I don't deserve this. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal sees best for you. And everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And the third component that he mentioned was وَحَبْسُ الْجَوَارِحِ عَنِ الْمَعَاصِي. To hold back your limbs from sinning. What sometimes people do is, okay, they've gone through a difficulty, they go and start drinking alcohol. And the example that Ibn al-Qayyim used was, right, someone passes away, they start ripping their hair out or they start slapping themselves, and this again would fall under this, right? So I remember, subhanAllah, there was a situation where a brother found out that someone committed a zina with his sister and then he dumped her. Basically used and abused her. And he goes, I'm going to go and do this to his sister. It doesn't work like that. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the right way to go about it. Just because he's done haram, I'm going to go and do haram. Like, Allah is going to ask you about what you've done. You can't just say, oh, he done it and then I did it as well. No, you're going to be held to account. There has to be self-accountability. The point of the matter is, that's not how to go about dealing with calamities that come our way. So these 3 components, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions, would basically define patience.
Definitely, sure.
And the reward is immense, of course.
Yeah.
It's one of the acts in our Sharia that hasn't been limited to a certain number, yani the reward.
Definitely.
إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم بغير حساب.
Is there another story from, the prophets or the messengers of old that really resonates with you at this current moment?
You know, sometimes when I think about the Palestinian situation, right? Because Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, you know, the Israelites and everything that's happening, there's a connection between the two, right? You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala split the sea and saved Bani Israel, right? Wallahi, I'm waiting for something like that to happen for our brothers and sisters in Palestine. And I believe they will be victorious, right? Imma shahada, they will die as martyrs, which is the greatest form of death. وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنْكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ, or they will be victorious. And they will see, inshaAllah ta'ala, that which will bring them utter joy.
I just wanted to touch on, I think it was by Abu Huraira, where he saw the Prophet ﷺ saying, the believer is like a mirror to his brother. In this day and age, you know, we all have some sort of an ego, and I think it's our due diligence to kind of advise our brother, but we all take in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
What's the correct steps you think in which we should take?
So as you mentioned, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min." He is the mirror of his believer. He is there to correct him, right? We're here to help one another and better one another. And you can only do that if you take the advice of the brother who is advising you, right? And I think that's an integral, important part of a Muslim's conduct. He learns to take advice. And sometimes the advice may come from someone that you don't like. We all want to reach that level of being mutawadhi'un, right? Which basically means to be humble. You know the hadith that everyone says, وَمَا تَوَاضَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَ. Never does an individual humble himself except Allah will raise him. So accepting advice is a part of that, humbling yourself to the creation when they advise you. I really like what Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned. He said, لا تصلح لك درجة التواضع حتى تقبل الحق ممن تحب وممن تبغض. You will never be able to reach that level of being humble until you make it a habit to accept the truth from the people that you love and the people that you hate. And I'm not going to say I talk like it's easy. You have to deal with it all the time, the detractors and people who don't like you. They'll say all sorts of things. And they may not necessarily even mean it as an advice, but they'll put it on the online world. And you have to be like critical in the sense where, does he have a point, does he not have a point? As to just completely dismiss it as hasad, envy, which can be the easy option out of the situation. Oh, this is just personal, that's why he's criticizing me. We should look at these criticism, and perhaps my opponent or the detractor, if you want to call him a hater, sometimes it comes off the tongue of a hater. But we should look at each one of these criticisms that are put forward and see whether it has a point or not. Does that make sense?
100%.
And this is what I personally try to do as much as I can. Wallahi, sometimes, you know, you just really struggle to see through it. You really struggle to see through it. I'm trying my utmost best to see this brother's point. But, you know, as Ibn al-Qayyim, as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, or when others, you know, speak about others, right? I've seen it happen with a couple of popular brothers. And you can clearly see it's hasad, subhanAllah. Habibi, the brother listens. Go and advise. No, I don't want to advise. I'm going to put it online. Then why do you need to put it online if the brother can maybe, right? If he is not maybe being receptive to the advice and is actually harming others, you may end up taking a different course of action. But we're not even there yet. The guy actually will take it down, speak to him, and have that discussion with him. It reminds me of something that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala said. He said, اعلموا رحمكم الله أن الله عز وجل إذا أو أن رجلا من أهل العلم إذا منح الله عز وجل شيئا من العلم حسدوه أو حرمه قرناءه حسدوه, right? فرموه بما ليس فيه. Subhanallah. If a person of knowledge is blessed with something that his classmates don't necessarily have or others haven't been blessed with, they end up having envy towards him. And they begin to accuse him of things that he's free from. Ibn al-Arabi al-Maliki, subhanallah, he would basically say, right, الناس إذا لم يجدوا عيوبا أحدثوا له عيوبا. Sometimes people can't find something to criticize you for, they'll look for anything to pin up against you. You know, it's a marad, yani, it's a sickness. Like subhanAllah, I've been in situations where a brother will come to me and give me a piece of advice, and I'll say to him, Jazakallah khair. And I think that his advice is completely out of place. Habibi, your advice is not binding. Right? Even a fatwa is not binding. Right? Jazakallah khair for your advice. This is how you personally see it. I'm not compelled to take this advice that you're basically saying. And the fact that I don't take your advice doesn't really mean anything. You shouldn't give advice on the condition of him accepting it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then sometimes a brother comes up to me and we have a back and forth, right? I don't know what you want to call this. This is more like a discussion, right? You bring me a point and I don't think this point is in its proper place, and then we go back, and then he goes back to others saying, I've already advised him, he never took the advice. Habib, we had a discussion.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't convince me with the point that you're bringing forward. Right? And a lot of the time, especially when it comes to the da'wah scene, right? Brothers with the same belief system, they're probably fighting with one another over ijtihadi related issues. Issues that are open for discussion. Right? In maybe how to approach certain things. Allah, may Allah Azza wa Jal cure us all, I know it's not easy for some brothers to see others having a huge crowd, right? It can hurt. At the end of the day, ask Allah Azza wa Jal, make dua for your brother. And I see it can sometimes affect certain people. Yeah, and there's of course times as well when people have heated discussions. It can get a little bit personal, right? And that shouldn't really be the reason as to why now you end up masking it with religion, yani. These kind of things happen. Like Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, Imam Shafi, I think it was, with Yunus al-Sadafi, when they got really heated between the teacher and the student, and he said, ألا يسعنا. Yani, isn't it sufficient for us to, even if we disagree, that we can still be brothers? But then sometimes what we do is mask it with religion, right? And make it look like as if, the dispute that you guys had was actually, in fact, due to deen, when it was maybe a misunderstanding or emotions got in the way. You guys just need to go and make wudu, take some time and then come back again, yani. It happens.
Yep.
It's bound to happen, yani.
What about in a scenario where you've got a close friend and he's practicing, but he doesn't necessarily pray all the time? You encourage him or you advise him the first time, and then it happens multiple times, and you don't want to obviously breach the line and show a bit of ego and everything. Should you stay silent, or is it something that you should continue to just encourage?
If someone is continuously doing a sin, and you've already told him once, twice, 3 times, and he's still not doing it, right? Then you just making it more and more and more, like repeating the same thing, isn't really a lot of the time going to have much of an impact. So once you've advised this individual, let there be like spaces in between, right? However, it's very, very important also to mention that if this individual is maybe engaged in some of these bad habits, and this is now going to rub off of you, there may come a point where you have to, part ways, if that makes sense. Right? Because Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, qu anfusakum, save yourselves and then your family. So number one is you saving yourself. You see what I'm saying? And the people that you hang around with, without a shadow of a doubt, they end up impacting you in ways that at times that you won't realize. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think that's extremely important.
Well, isn't there a saying from Muawiyah where it's like you have to maintain relationships with, for example, your kinship, with like you're balancing a hair. So it's like you're there, like with I'm talking about people who are probably not the best for you to be in your environment for good, but you're kind of balancing those relationships like a thin hair between 2 fingers, and then so you're kind of moving with them as they move across, so you don't break that hair because it's such a fragile relationship.
Yeah.
There was something.
Well, I've personally not come across, but Jazakallah khair.
Is it?
Nice.
You never come across
No,
it?
I've personally not come across it.
I don't know, my dad
Jazakallah
always
khair.
brings it up, subhanAllah.
MashaAllah.
My dad always tells me, don't ever make sure you keep good with everybody.
It's one thing keeping good relationship, it's another hanging around with him like every day of the week, yani. Right? If someone's doing some of these acts that are extremely distasteful or displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal, it's eventually going to end up rubbing off the companions. You see what I'm saying? That's why the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam spoke about the blacksmith and the perfume seller. You enter into the perfume seller's shop, you'll come out with something even if you haven't bought anything, you'll be smelling good. And then the blacksmith, you'll end up getting burnt even without realizing. That's what I'm saying.
SubhanAllah, 100%.
Even the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, الرجل على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم أن يخالل. One is upon the religion of his friend, so he needs to examine who he hangs around with. I really like the incident that Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala mentions between Imran ibn Hittan, who was actually from the students of the companions. He used to take lessons from Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And then he fell in love with this Kharijite, a lady from the Khawarij, extremists, ISIS type of. Long story cut short, everyone's telling him don't, right? And he was like, don't worry, I'm going to impact her. I'm going to have a positive influence on her. They ended up getting married, subhanAllah. He ended up becoming from the heads of the Khawarij. The heads, not just a backroom member, you know, like from the heads. Something very funny that I came across was, subhanAllah, in Sirah Alam al-Nubala. Every time I think, wallah, it's so funny. She would say to him, me and you are both in al-Jannah. And he would ask, why? What makes you say that? With so much confidence. And she goes, I am a sabir and you are a shakir. You know, Ibn al-Qayyim has a kitab, Madarij al-Salikin, right? That talks about, the kitab, Iddatu sabirin wa dhakhiratu shakirin. That half of the religion is patience, the other half is thanks, right? So he said, why? She goes, I'm the patient one and you're the thankful one. What do you mean? Like, I'm being patient at how ugly you are, and I'm so thankful, right? Or you're so thankful for how beautiful I am. She said to him, Allah.
That's a violation.
Wallahi, that's a violation.
Oh my days.
I just someone said this to you today, yeah?
That's actually crazy. Subhanallah. But I gotta get my bearings again. Subhanallah. I didn't expect that. So
Yeah.
oh well. If you don't like someone, khalas, you know exactly what to use now. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh.
No, I didn't encourage that. I'm free from.
But I just want to go back to, inshallah, the topic of believer being a mirror of another believer. I think somebody had made a very interesting point on, or a perspective on how that is. Because subhanallah, from my understanding, if you decide to become judgmental about another person or another believer, and you speak about a certain sin that they do and you push that out into the open, you'll end up committing that same sin down the line. Like, you won't pass away until you commit that same sin.
Yeah. There's narration of that, even though it's weak, but the scholars, they always mention in their books, Ibn al-Qayyim mentions as well, مَنْ عَيَّرَ أَخَاهُ بِذَنْبٍ لَمْ يَمُتْ حَتَّى يَعْمَلَهُ. Whoever degrades his brother for a sin that he's committed, he will not die until he ends up doing it. And wallahi, I've actually seen the implications of this in this world. How many a time did I come across an auntie who would hear about a sister in the area, in the locality, that fell pregnant. And instead of making dua for her and fearing for her own daughters, she said, oh, look at that man. Literally degrading, and in Somali they call it Acai, I think that's how they say it, right? Is there another word for degrade? Looking down at them, and, you know? Somali is good, right?
I'm not Somali.
Oh,
Yeah.
Call racism
Neighbor.
on camera.
there you are. Ethiopian?
Nah, yeah.
Or Eritrea.
Oromo.
Huh?
Have you heard of Oromo?
Ah, yeah, Ma'ruf, yeah. Sorry about that.
No.
We are Ethiopia, anyways.
Yeah.
Proud, mashallah, Allahumma barik.
Gotta
But
claim
yeah,
it.
So, yeah, wallahi, like, I've seen so, and then eventually her daughter ends up becoming one of those.
subhanallah,
It
yeah.
ends up happening to her daughter.
We've heard that story so many times, especially when men that have decided to go around with other women or sisters, and then they always come back saying, like, some guys are like my daughter ended up down that same route. Subhanallah. So
I believe in that concept. What goes around comes around. It's mentioned in the Quran. It's a Quranic concept. What goes around comes around. I know when we were in primary school, I don't know what you guys call it here in Australia. This is before secondary school.
yes, primary school.
Primary?
Yeah.
Okay. Same colonizers. Yeah. Subhanallah, yani, this is what they would say all the time. What goes around comes around, to instill positive ethics into us, right? Or good ethics into us. So it's a Quranic concept. I remember, subhanallah, yani, just to go back to the point of degrading others, man ayyara akhahu bidhanb. There was a brother in Yemen. You know, when we were in Yemen, we lived in a village, so we were pretty disconnected, out of touch with reality, yani. And I remember there was a brother who held a view that wearing trousers is imitated the kuffar, right? And subsequently, this is haram. You can't wear trousers. I can see with your face expression, you're pretty surprised at that. But yeah, there are some narrations that one can perhaps look at and think, This is the case. Long story cut short, he would say to the brothers in West London, because they had a masjid, right? If someone wears trousers, he shouldn't be allowed to give a khutbah. Right? Because he's doing haram and he's openly sinning. And someone who openly sins, this is fisq. Right? And because of it, he's not fit to give a khutbah. And he would say, Wallah, I remember this so clearly, right? I would prefer for my knee to be chopped off than for me to wear trousers. Same as such. Yani, A-level degrading yani, of others, subhanAllah. The way he would talk down at them and so on and so forth. This brother ended up going back. You know, when the war happened and everyone had to leave. And after a whole year of looking for work, when he got tired, right? So I don't even remember, subhanAllah, this brother started driving without insurance, thinking insurance is haram, which is, of course, but yani, you can't function without insurance. Yani, you have to take it. We take it because of certain legal maxims and whatever have you, right? He goes, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to put my trust in Allah. And this, you can see there's a level of disconnect here, yani. Right? I'm going to put my trust in Allah. The police caught him, and they took his sayyara, and ya akhi, maskin, you barely have anything. After he got tired, he eventually ended up, subhanAllah, getting a job at the airport. And I don't think they walk around in thobes at the airport, right? No. And it wasn't just trousers that he was wearing. Allah tested him with wearing purple trousers. Who wears purple trousers today? Rainbow team, right? This is what we think of. This is the kind of clothing that they normally wear. Guys walking around in purple trousers. Like,
and the purple wiggle as well.
Huh?
I think he wears purple trousers.
Who?
The Wiggles? You never heard of the Wiggles before?
That's an Australian base.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, don't worry about
and
it.
you'll get tested. Like, you need to take things easy a little bit, not degrade and look down at others.
Definitely.
I remember this so vividly, right? When I was in Yemen, how this brother would go around giving others a hard time. It's like, you're on the other side of the world in a village. We barely had internet, Habibi. Like, if I needed to use the internet, I'd have to go to an internet cafe, and then it would take like what? How many minutes to load one page, yani? Because it was running on a motor. Yeah, so it's important, subhanAllah, when you address a certain situation, you need to know the situation of the people. That's vital. And this is why some questions that they've asked me here in Australia, I will say to them, go to this sheikh and go to that sheikh. If that same question was asked, and I'm in the UK, I'll probably be able to answer it. However, there are intricacies. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys, one of the questions, I answered like that. I told them to go to Sheikh Abu Bakr Zod when he comes in a couple of days' time, ask him this question. Because it was a loaded question, and it involved quite a few intricacies. So it's important to know the situation very well. I've only been here 2-3 days. I don't have a right to actually speak about this matter.
Yeah.
There are scholars of a locality, they are more knowing of a situation than others. You see what I'm saying? Like even Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَمَنْ أَفْتَى النَّاسِ بِمُجَرَّدِ الْمَنْقُولِ. Whoever gives people a fatwa merely based on what is in the books, without taking into consideration their awa'id, their adat, the azmina, the amkina, right? It doesn't take into consideration the place that they're in, the time, their cultures, right? This person فَقَدْ ضَلَّ وَأَضَلَّ. He's misguided, right? He's gone astray and he's led other people astray as well. And then he says that this person is similar to the doctor who prescribes everyone the same medicine. He just basically gets it out of the book. No, you need to talk to that individual. You need to take people's situations into consideration.
Context is important, 100%.
You'll end up killing him, right? And fatwa is similar to that. I think that's very, very important.
You brought up Ibn Qayyim, and I feel like he's got a very interesting book, and you brought it up in the lecture yesterday.
And by the way, what I mentioned right now is not only specifically Ibn Qayyim, even Ibn Abidin al-Hanafi, al-Qarafi, al-Maliki, they all mention similar statements to that.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah, so it's across the board, This kind of concepts very, very important. Yeah, go on.
Da'wah Dawa. That book, I believe, I've only heard people's perspectives of it. Obviously, they've been speaking about it in lectures, and I've heard then summarizations of it. And subhanAllah, it brings up and it exposes a lot about the causes or what sins cause a person in their lifetime. What lesson did you draw from that book that you've carried out till today?
SubhanAllah, I've delivered so many lectures on it. Like whenever I go to a country, I always like to go through this book. I don't know, should I go through it today maybe?
Yeah.
BGCC.
If you do, I'm coming then. So
It's all online, I've gone through it many, many times. It's a book that's very, very dear to my heart. It speaks about the consequences and the effects of sins. If you just type into YouTube effects of sins, I'll have a whole load of lectures. I went through it in Kenya, went through it in the UK. Went through it in Australia as well. First time around I came. Wallahi, when I went through his book with Sheikh Abdul Razak al-Badr in the Haram, right? Wallahi, it left me with tears, man. It really did. It started putting a lot of things into perspective for me as to why people go through different hardships and difficulties, or why things tend to start going wrong. Yeah, wallahi, it's just truly amazing, honestly. If maybe there's one thing that I can mention now. There's so much in that book. Right? If I can mention one thing, yes, I'll link it with something that is very relevant, right? That everyone can benefit from. You know, the emptiness that one begins to feel, right? Being spiritually dead. This is something that cannot be, this is not something that can be fixed with these, worldly glitters and glamours of this dunya. And it's the way Allah created your heart, it craves for its creator. The more you sin, eventually you'll become spiritually dead and empty. And it starts affecting you in so many different ways. It begins to affect your rizq, your provision. As the Messenger ﷺ told us, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَا يُحْرَمُ الرِّزْقَ بِخَطِيئَةٍ يَعْمَلُهَا. And when we connect the two together, someone may ask, okay, طيب, I don't see the non-Muslims who are carrying out all types of filth and evil and doing countless sins. I don't see them struggling, right? How would you answer that? Even though we just mentioned it begins to affect your provision, and you begin to or you begin to suffer from spiritual emptiness, lack of contentment and satisfaction, right? One statement, subhanAllah, I found in that book, I believe it was in that book, ما ضرب عبد بعقوبة أعظم من قسوة القلب. They may have the glitters and the glamours of this world, and Allah may want to give it to them so they can increase in sin, as mentioned in Surah Al Imran. ليزدادوا إثما, right? إنما نملي لهم ليزدادوا إثما. Sorry. They are suffering inside. Wallahi, they are suffering inside. Right? And they're looking for different things now to keep them content. Whether they may be sports, whether they may be drugs, whether they may be alcohol. In order to fill that void. And this is from the consequences of sins. And a lot of people are going through that. When you don't have Allah in your life, right, this is how you're going to feel. Wallahi, it could be someone that is the most poorest of people. He barely has anything. Just go to Medina University. You see brothers who barely have much, right? But they're so content and satisfied. Their hearts are activated.
100%.
Even though they have a little, but they have Allah Azza wa Jal. That knowledge is what keeps them going. Like, turns them into the most happiest people on the face of the earth.
I believe happiness is subjective anyway. It's not something that someone can come to you and tell you there's a formula for it and that's it. Like someone I think there was a video of brothers and sisters, or brother in the refugee camps, I think in Palestine. He said, look, we're surrounded by Allah's ni'mah. And he's like lost his home and his family, and subhanAllah, you're like...
Even look at the Palestinians, subhanAllah. Look at our brothers and sisters in Palestine, the contentment and satisfaction they have. Just the other day, I heard since the beginning up until now, it's been a couple of hundreds that have memorized the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the way they respond, look, like that. Do you guys remember that man that was in the hospital that lost his kids, The man that went viral. Look how content and satisfied he is. Our shuhada are in Jannah. Right? That's not something that you can buy with anything that is monetary, May Allah give us contentment and satisfaction.
Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ameen. Wallahi, I'm conscious of time. I do want to talk to you for a little bit longer, but I'm getting some stares.
Getting signals.
Yeah. I'll leave you to have, inshallah, to have your space now to speak about one thing that everyone should take away, inshallah. Anything that's been on your mind or...
Allah, brothers, man, learn your religion, honestly. Learn your religion. And the greatest part of knowledge that you can learn is learning about who Allah Azza wa Jalla is, His names and His attributes. That's what gives you a better idea of who Allah is. Not for the sake of jumping online to debate. Not for you to learn about the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal in order to get closer to Him. You can't love something or you can't love someone that you don't know. I'm sure every single one of us, we love certain types of individuals, and the reason why we increase in love for them is because of what we know about them. But we don't know anything about Allah. We don't know anything about our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how do we expect to become activated when we hear their commandments and their prohibitions? Right? In Surah Yusuf again, and I love this example of innahu huwa al-alim al-hakim. Al-alim and al-hakim is mentioned time and time again, 3-4 times. Surah Yusuf. And it is as if we are, right, roaming with these two names of Allah Azza wa Jal throughout the whole story of Yusuf. Constantly reminding that I know exactly what you're going through. I am all knowing. I know that which has happened, that which is happening, that which is going to happen. And if something was going to happen, how it would happen. Right? But remember, everything is happening, right, based on Allah Azza wa Jal's wisdom. Al-Hakim. Filled with trials and tribulations, right? Forsaken, thrown in a well, and then randomly gets picked up, right? They end up selling him بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَةٍ for something so cheap. And then he is brought up in one of the most richest of environments.
Yep.
And then becomes the treasurer of Egypt, and eventually where he ended up. Right? It's like you're living throughout this whole Inna al-Alim al-Hakim. Like next time when you go through something or something is taken away from you, how are you going to look at it? You're going to look at it differently. Allah has taken this away from me because He wants to give me that which is better. Allah is all wise. You get what I'm saying? I'm sure you've been in a situation before where you desperately wanted a sister, so badly wanted her, and it just didn't go ahead. And then later on, Allah will bless you with a woman with qualities and characteristics that the mind can't imagine. And that's when you will say, right, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have this today. Just setting out for you.
No, it's all right, inshallah. I appreciate it.
Getting you prepared mentally and physically and emotionally.
We were speaking in the other podcast earlier. We were speaking about how the way, and Sheikh Bahdon said this on our podcast. He goes, sometimes you got to release what's in your hand now in order to be ready to receive an even better blessing. So I feel like, subhanAllah, that's nail on the head. I'm getting the look from now that I can feel it. So what we're going to do is, inshallah, we're going to wrap up there. Ustad, thank you so much for coming on again. Wallahi,
it's an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure.
It's like every 3 years, like we do something.
Wallahi, we got to do it
like
again.
the Olympics, every 4 years, every World Cup.
It will happen, inshallah, again.
Inshallah.
Maybe, if not in this world, inshallah, in Jannah, we'll have a podcast there.
Why not?
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you.
الله يبارك فيك. جزاك الله خير.
Don't forget.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.